Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist in Las Vegas, Victor King in South Florida. Here we go, ready again for week 11. And we got a real announcement from last week. Victor hit something we really have to talk about, but we're going to talk about that a little later.
Yeah,
How
hey Jim, you're right. We got cool weather down here in South Florida, or the entire state, if you will, relatively speaking. Evenings in the 50s. That's kind of cool. It's difficult for my wife and her family. They're from Colombia. They got the thick, hot Latin blood, so it's been like extremely cold for them. It's not that big of a deal for us guys down here who are from Ohio, and I really like it actually when we get that change to the milder, cooler weather down here in South Florida.
what's it like in Ohio right now?
In Ohio, they're in somewhere in the 40s, and heck, again, when I was up in that area of the neck of the woods, we were still golfing in the 40s and the 50s in Ohio. So definitely not a big deal, that is for sure.
Well,
But
that's a league that
overall, a good week for us, Jim. We do want to mention that our dog Brutus, little baby Brutus, won his Monday night under the total. You saw that game,
oh, yeah.
that ugly Monday night game, 10-7 final score. You know what was the weird thing about last week was that the week opened up with a 10-7 game on Thursday, and the week concluded with a 10-7 game on Monday night. I thought that was kind of fascinating. All three of the primetime games ended up going under the total last week. And I believe we're up to about like four or five primetime unders in a row. Of course, with last night's Patriots Jets game going under the total. So all of a sudden now, some of these night games have been a little low scoring. So you kind of want to stay away from the overs right now when it comes to the NFL primetime games.
I'll tell you what, some of this football is not easy to watch. It's pretty ugly stuff.
You're right, particularly that first Thursday night game last week. There was some bad football in that game. And hey, even last night, you mentioned bad football.
Oh,
And what we talked about prior to the show was that Justin Fields at times just looked totally unprepared, totally lost, reminiscent of like the butt fumble and things like that from Thursday night game. Eh, it's some tough football to watch these days that we're seeing, particularly in some of these lower scoring affairs.
I think if we talk to some NFL experts that have been around a long time, they would tell you we have 6 to 8 quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks in the league that shouldn't be starting quarterbacks.
That shouldn't. You're absolutely right. What's interesting, Jim, is that that kind of plays into that little text that I sent you earlier this week about backup quarterbacks in the NFL,
Correct.
and we may as well mention it now.
Yeah.
Um, First off, let me run through really, really quickly the overall results from last week. For the second week in a row, NFL games were split right down the middle in terms of actual over/under results. 7 overs, 7 unders last week. Average combined points was 46.2. We are now at exactly 46.6 on the season, and there's been 79 overs. There's been 69 unders. There's been one tie. We're at 53% over the total right now after 10 weeks of play. But that interesting little nugget that I came across, and I can't take credit for it, Jim, but I thought it was interesting nevertheless, because again, this is a year in which, like last year, we're seeing plenty of backup quarterbacks getting some starts this season as well. But through 10 weeks, we've had 35 total backup quarterbacks start a game in the NFL this season. There's been one matchup with a backup quarterback against another backup quarterback. But anyway, in the 34 games with a backup quarterback who is the starter, there's been 26 overs in those games and only 8 unders. which is fascinating. We're talking about the second string quarterbacks. That's 77% over the total on the season. If you're looking for a hot over stat, there you have it right there. 26 overs, 8 unders in NFL games in which the backup quarterback is starting. Since the start of week 9, that's the last 2 weeks, these games have gone 6-1 to the over. So interesting over the total stats. You wouldn't think it with a backup quarterback.
Can you explain that?
No,
Do you have
no,
any
no.
idea?
You can't. That's something that you cannot explain.
So
Try,
it don't make
try
sense.
as I can. I'm going into the database. I can't explain. I can tell you this. There's 5 or 6 games this week in
Yeah.
which the backup quarterback will be starting, and we may as well mention those games. Are we going to be betting the over in all 5 or 6 of them? I don't think so. But at least it might be prudent to stay away from the under in any of the games. But those games are, of course, the first game ever in Spain is being played this Sunday morning. Our Miami Dolphins are involved. And, of course, Washington has a backup quarterback in that game, Marcus Mariota. Consider the over in Spain. Also, Giants. Jameis Winston is getting the start this week.
Famous Jameis Winston, who'll throw the ball to anybody that can catch it.
Right. It's always fun playing a Jameis Winston over 1.5 TDs and Jameis Winston over 1.5 interceptions in the same game, right?
Yes.
Hey, Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Flacco. He's been a man possessed, old man Joe, again, making the start this week. You see what Cincinnati has done with him at quarterback. And we've got a couple of Flacco props we'll talk about later. But again, there's another game in which the backup quarterback will be starting, as in Houston as well. They just announced last night that C.J. Stroud, still under concussion protocol. Davis Mills will be getting his second start. You saw what happened last week. Jacksonville had that big 29-point lead in the fourth quarter, but
Wow.
Houston and Davis Mills came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden there was 65 points scored in that game, Houston last week. Also this week there is a game in which, one more backup quarterback game. Even though the 49ers announced that Brock Purdy is finally back this week and starting, and good for you, Brock. Remember the Cardinals, the team that they're playing, have Jacoby Brissett starting, another backup quarterback. You've seen what the Cardinals have done with Brissett at the helm. Again, we've talked about it multiple times. I think they're a much more efficient team offensively with Brissett than with Mac Jones. But there you have it. Currently, the 5 games in which the backup quarterback is starting this week. And, of course, that angle that's gone 77% to the over this season, Jim.
Excellent stuff. And, I have to wonder, and I have to ask you this because you're an expert at this. Why are they so enamored with San Francisco games 1 up to 3, 3.5? Because Purdy's coming back. He hasn't played in 6 games, and Mac Jones is playing pretty well. So how rusty will he be?
Yes, that is the case, and it is a little bit of a head-scratching line. At one point, the game was pretty much around pick'em, but since they did announce the Brock Purdy news, like you say, we're pretty much seeing San Francisco favored by a full field goal on the road, pretty much across the board in that game, with the over/under around 48.5. Is there going to be some rust involved for Brock Purdy or not? That is the case. For over the total bettors, I think I may have almost preferred Mac Jones as the Niner quarterback rather than Brock Purdy, but I still think there's possibly some meat on the bone, and we'll talk about that game pretty much. You know what, Jim? We may as well go into it right now. Our first totals play of the week, and it is courtesy of our totals newsletter. Playbook Totals Tip Sheet newsletter. There you got the headline. We mentioned that Brutus brought home his Monday night winner with that under the total. Jim, we've also got a full color copy of this week's Playbook Football newsletter. All publications available at playbooksports.com. You don't want to miss it. It's definitely required reading for anybody who is planning on making a wager this week in college football on Saturday or in the NFL on Sunday and Monday. But we're still going with the 49ers and the Cardinals over the total. Both teams, of course, off horrific defensive games, that's for sure, right? 42 and
Oh, yeah.
44 points allowed, respectively, last week.
Yes.
But yet, each team still scored a respectable 22 points each. And against two very good defenses, the Rams and the Seahawks, I might add. You did see the results of those NFC West games last week. 66 points in one game, 68 points in the other. So I think we've got at least one NFC West over this week, maybe two. We'll see what happens in that big game with the Rams and the Seahawks. But again, I think we've got enough database ammo to still justify a play on the over in this 49er game. We've got a high total, 47. It opened at. It's somewhere around 48 and a half. So I've got a query that applies to the game that's gone 8-1-1 to the over in the last three seasons. It's dome games, indoor games within the same division that have high over-under lines of 48 or higher, like this particular game. And again, they've gone 8-1-1 to the over in the last three seasons. I did mention both teams allowed a ton of points last week. Here's another one that's gone a very, very surprising 10-0 to the over. We're going all the way back to the 2012 season. Same division games when both teams allowed 38 or more points per game on defense the previous week. That is the case for the Cardinals and the Niners. There is a requisite in this game as long as the over-under line is 43 points or higher. It definitely is in this game. So that's a solid 10-0 to the over since 2012. We've got numerous database systems that point to a high-scoring game. But bottom line is, Jim, whether it's Brock Purdy, whether it's Mac Jones, the Niners are allowing a lot of points on defense, as are the Cardinals. But B, they've been scoring a lot as well. And in fact, it's surprising that San Francisco has got such very, very good passing numbers on the season. I definitely think Arizona is a better team from an offensive efficiency standpoint with Brissett over Kyler Murray.
Oh,
So
definitely.
at 48 and a half, I still think we got some value. And that's going to be our first over-under play that we'll put out on the show today is the Niners and the Cardinals to go over the total indoors in one of Sunday's late afternoon starts.
And it's important to know that that is indoors because weather is a factor this week. And we'll talk about that. There are many games that look to be affected by the weather.
That's a good idea. Since you're on the topic, Jim, well, what do you got? Let's compare it to what I got. It looks like there's going to be some wind involved as well, huh?
You got some, not only wind, but, you look at the wind and you say, okay, it's 18, 19 mile an hour wind. And then you look at the wind gusts, like in Cleveland, your old hometown, and a place I visit frequently, 30 mile an hour gusts, 22 mile an hour wind. You got similar but less in Buffalo. You got similar but less in Pittsburgh, which is they're not far apart from each other and both around the lakes up in that area.
Yeah.
The Giants have issues with it also, but that's quite a bit away from them. So you have this across the board. And I'm not sure at this point what we're going to get in Denver, but we have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah. Also in Buffalo, potential snow showers. We saw our first snow game of the season last week in Chicago, right?
Yes.
The Giants and Bears game. That was fun, seeing some white stuff on the ground, definitely. And you may see that this week in the Buffalo game. And, Jim, as a result, the line of that one's come down. It's at one point it was getting close to 49, and now it's down into the 46 and a half point range.
That's exactly.
So it does look like the weather is definitely impacting the OU line in that particular game.
Well, and it really isn't really impacting the Pittsburgh-Cincinnati game, which is kind of surprising because, I mean, Cincinnati's going to score. They're going to do it through the air with Flacco throwing the ball. And the first time they played, it was really high scoring, but that was in Cincinnati. The weather wasn't a factor. But Pittsburgh, boy, that game against the Chargers, they looked, I can't say too much good about the Cincinnati because their defense is so bad, but Pittsburgh, man, they just look sick at times. They look like they don't even belong in the league. And if it wasn't for Harbaugh saying, okay, guys, drop back, prevent defense, and and let Pittsburgh go down and score, they didn't even have a third down conversion until that last drive. I'm talking about Pittsburgh. This is NFL football.
Right.
Horrible.
Aaron Rodgers, a career low yards per attempt. Pittsburgh is content with this kind of dink and dunk short passing game, and it's getting them absolutely nowhere. And we'll talk about this one in a minute. In fact, you know what? It's probably a good segue to head into one of our top team totals of the week since we are on the topic. It's going to be an over in this Pittsburgh-Cincinnati game, but it's not going to be the full game over. I don't trust Pittsburgh to score 27 or more points in the game. I can't trust them, even at home. I can't do it. But the over aspect that I will be betting on in this game is Cincinnati to score over 22.5 points in the game. I love it. Love the number. Rested, healthy. They're off their bye week. They're one of the hottest offenses over the last 6 weeks of play by far. Not to mention, the bar is set relatively low for us in this game. You're asking Cincinnati to score only 23 or more points in the game. And that's a fabulously low number considering veteran Joe Flacco has led Cincinnati to a scoring average of 32.7 points per game in his starts and 405 offensive yards per game. Cincinnati is 6-3 to the over in their team totals this season. They're off a 3-game stretch now in which they scored 33, 38, and 42 points. And The capper is the fact that, one of those games you just talked about was against this very same Pittsburgh team 4 weeks ago, a Thursday night 33-31 shootout, which was fabulous to watch. The very same Pittsburgh team that's ranked number 27 in red zone defense, meaning when opposing teams get to the Pittsburgh 20-yard line, they're going to score touchdowns more often than field goals. That's big when we're on a team total over. And also Pittsburgh's dead last in passing defense on the season. They're allowing 270 passing yards per game. And the clincher from our database, NFL teams have averaged 31.8 points per game after their bye week when they scored 40 points or more in that game before the bye week. So it applies to the Bengals this week. Again, it's a high total in the game. There's going to be a lot of folks betting the over in the game. I can't fault them, the full game total. But for me, the sharper play, the play I'm much more confident in is just Cincinnati to go over their team total.
Yeah, and I'd like to put this in there. It's not statistical based. It's basically an individual based. Joe Flacco knows that he's at the end of his career. He's not going to be around much longer as a football player. He's had a great career. He knows that Burrow is going to be the quarterback. So he's not going to be there. And I doubt that I don't know that Joe's going to hang around much longer or he'll go back to the couch. I don't know that. But you know that he's not going to be a starting quarterback very many places in the NFL anymore. So he knows that Joe Burrow's getting better and he might come back and play this year. However, there's no real reason for that to happen. because Cincinnati, unless they win this game, they're totally out of any contention issues for division or anything. Because if the Ravens lose and they would win, it would start to get very tight. So I think, as a person, competitive person, which you and I both are, you wouldn't want to give up the stage. And I really feel Flacco, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be really determined to keep that perch that he has right now. And honestly, with putting up that many points, how much better could Burrow be if he did come back? I mean, Burrow doesn't play defense. The problem is defense, not
Right.
offense. So if you have a guy that's putting up 300 yards and over 30 points a game, why the hell would you make a change? What's the point?
Right. Exactly. And in fact, from a QBR ranking, Flacco's rated higher than Joe Burrow this season anyway. He is. Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Steelers, is deathly afraid of any Joe Flacco team that he's faced in his career when he was back with Baltimore Ravens. I mean, Tomlin even talked about it like 6 weeks ago when Cincinnati made that trade within the division against who trades a quarterback within the division? Well, Cleveland and Cincinnati did. But Mike Tomlin said he was so surprised when he heard about that deal. And it scares the hell out of him facing every time he has to face Joe Flacco. And again, that'll be the case this week. Hey, 23 points, that should be no problem whatsoever for Cincinnati. The only thing that scares me a little bit in the game is we touched on this very, very briefly. It may have been last week, it may have been 2 weeks ago, is the fact that this field in Pittsburgh, Acrisure Field, whatever they're calling the stadium these days, I don't know. It used to be called Heinz Field. We still call it the ketchup bottle, whatever. It's one of the worst playing surfaces in the NFL, and this is one of the reasons that Pittsburgh unders at home were so solid for a 10-year period. I mentioned the last time that it's not that big of a deal when the previous day the University of Pitt Panthers don't have a game. Guess what? This week, on Saturday afternoon, the Pitt Panthers in college football are hosting a game, and less than 24 hours later, this very same field will be the host to an NFL game. How choppy, how ugly will field conditions be? I do not know. But it's the only thing that's scaring me about any over possibilities in this game, again, is the fact that a college football game will be played on this exact same field less than 24 hours earlier.
To me, that seems like an advantage to the offensive player. It's almost like when you're playing on ice or snow, you have the offensive player knows where he's going, the defensive player does not. Now, if Pittsburgh plays man, that makes it even worse because now they are having to react to that one player's moves. If you play zone, it's a little less of a problem because you're playing areas instead of people. So but in that case, I mean, still in any case, it's the advantage goes to the offense because they do know what they're doing and where they're going before the defense has to react.
Yeah. The line's been rock solid all week long. It pretty much opened at 49, the full game total, and it's still right around 49. And
yeah,
I'm not seeing a lot of action either way in the game. And
even though there's weather, there's no reaction at all, and there is weather.
Right, but potential weather. You're absolutely right.
It's not very far from Cleveland. It's certainly not very far from Buffalo.
Right. Yep. Now, before we get into some of our props, Jim, there was a interesting tidbit that I read on Twitter yesterday that I got to mention because it could potentially impact everybody who watches this show and anybody who bets individual player props in the NFL. The NFL sent out a memo yesterday from main man Roger Goodall.
I did not see that.
Uh, somebody, okay, what do I got here? The NFL sent a memo to team officials on Thursday saying that in light of recent gambling scandals in other sports like NBA and Major League Baseball, the NFL has worked with lawmakers, regulators, and sports betting partners in recent weeks to A, limit, and B, where possible, prohibit prop bets in the NFL. This memo was sent out yesterday. If you enjoy your props, folks, bet them now. Bet them
Yeah.
now. Bet them this season because next year at this time, there's a very, very good chance that all NFL props will not be allowed, will be voided. He just sent out this memo yesterday to every team in the league. Roger Goodall did. So you may want to research it. You may want to take a look at it. But the days of individual player props are waning. And again, like I say, next year at this time, these prop bets may not even be available.
I'd like to make a comment on the whole issue of these prop bets and the gambling, and see if you concur. Well, a few years ago, we legalized sports betting in the United States, and DraftKings, FanDuel, companies like that started bringing in more options for betting than were ever available before. Certainly, in my lifetime, I'd never seen it. Now, what you have here, you got the nil, the that is making people a lot of money in college. The transfer portal, which is making people some money in college, but a lot of those players do not really. A lot of players in college do not share in that because they're really not good enough. But they're certainly envious of it. I know that I would be. However, now they're saying, well, how can I get a slice of this pie? Because I'm not going to go to the NBA or in the NFL or Major League Baseball. I'm not recruited that way. I'm not as good as these guys, but there's a lot of money out there. I mean, got a player in Texas that got $26 million. I mean, and I got zero. So how do I? So it opens up the door for them. They can go to a sports book in their state, a DraftKings, a FanDuel, things like that, that opened up all these options without thinking about the consequences of doing that. And they're saying, hey, I can do one thing. I can throw a game. I can fix a game. I can shave points. I can get hurt halfway through. There's a prop on me tonight of this, and I can make sure that I don't score 18 points. I'm only going to score 14. When I get 14, I'm going to twist an ankle, that kind of a thing. So this is not thought out well. It was not thought out well by these people that are running these companies. And I think that unless they terminate these individual player props, this is going to be chaos and the wild, wild west again. Now, I don't understand when you get to the pro level and these guys are making millions that they would do this stuff, because you're already making millions and now you can add to it by cheating and doing stuff. It makes no sense to me that they would have that motivation to do it. Why would they want to do it? Because you're risking a career that you might be making $20 million a year or more to do this. And then when you're not only risking your job, you're risking jail. It makes no sense to me, Victor. I don't understand it.
My theory is that I'm sick of. Man, am I sick of all these DraftKings and FanDuel commercials on TV? But heck, this has gone on for 5, 6, 7 years, ever since the PASDA was reenacted in 2016. So many commercials, it's unsettling. Did they think long term? Probably not. There are signs, like you say, that they probably put the cart ahead of the horse. But my theory on why an NFL professional player might potentially throw a game, the very first thing that comes to mind, and I could be off base, is what's the average career length in Major League Baseball or in the NBA? it's probably 6, 7, 8, 9 years. But in the NFL, the average career length is only about 2.5 to 3 seasons. So maybe that's the reason. Maybe just right off the top of the head, I'm thinking they have such a short career span in the NFL that a player might be more tempted to throw a prop thinking that, hey, I'm going to be retired in a couple of years anyway. So that's the only thing that jumps out at me as far as a potential reason, Jim.
Well, I've been in this 60 years, and I'm sure you've been close to that. Um, I would like it. I want to save the industry, and protect the industry and protect the integrity. So, if we have to ban props, then let's do it, so we can save the integrity of the league, because we're losing integrity in a lot of areas of life, and I really don't want to lose it in the area of sports betting. So
Here,
I
here.
say, bravo, let's close it down.
Right. We already live in a society of hate and lies and deception in so many different other areas, politics, military. We could definitely get into a different conversation. But you're right. There's nothing wrong with a little bit more integrity and honesty as well. So I'm definitely agreed with you. But with that said, Jim, hey, we hit a 23-1 parlay last week.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about something fun.
Let's talk about it. That parlay, if you remember from, I think, with the tail end of last week's show, was three
Yes.
guys to score a touchdown. One was Tez Johnson, the rookie wide receiver of Tampa Bay, who scored. The other was Woody Marks, the rookie running back for the Houston Texans, who scored. And the third was Trey McBride, the sensational young tight end for the Arizona Cardinals, who scored 23-1. It's always beautiful when we hit, one of these. So we're playing with house money now, Jim, for the rest of the season in regards to these TD parlays. And I'm not going to bury the lead. We'll start our props for this week with another anytime TD parlay that I like.
I'm going to write
And,
this one down.
and FYI, this one at the current odds also pays 23-1. Maybe that's our lucky number, 23 to
I
1.
think it is. Yes.
But anyway, the first player that we have in this 3-team touchdown parlay for week 11, let me see here. I got it here somewhere. Okay, here we go. Yeah. This Atlanta Falcons team has been a weird ass team. Just when you think you've got the running back situation figured out, Bijan Robinson, right? Then Tyler Algier steps in and starts pulling away all of the red zone carries, all of the rushing carries inside the 10-yard line. He scored last week for the Atlanta Falcons, and we're playing him again this week to score. Tyler Algier, he opened at plus 185, is already down to plus 150. He had 13 carries inside the 10-yard line compared to Bijan Robinson only had 4 last week. For some reason, Bijan gets all that key yardage inside from the 10-yard line to the 10-yard line. But once we get inside the 10-yard line, it's Tyler Algier of the Falcons who's getting all the carries. He had a 2-touchdown performance last week in Germany, in the Germany game against the Indianapolis Colts. Michael Penix is struggling in the red zone. In fact, his completion percentage in the red zone is even worse than Justin Fields. So once Atlanta, who as a favorite in the game against Carolina this week, they're going to be running the ball even more, the Falcons. Expect Atlanta to keep the ball on the ground, particularly once they get into the red zone. Algier is the guy to cash in close. Not Bijan Robinson, who is the huge big favorite. It's going to be Tyler Algier, the first leg of our parlay. Currently, I got him at plus 150, and that's surprising. He opened at plus 195, so there are people who are already joining us on a Tyler Algier touchdown. The next one is we talked about the Bengals Steelers game. And if you take a look at Cincinnati's defense, who will not be playing with Hendrickson this week, they're stud on the defensive line. Take a look at what the tight ends have done against the Cincinnati defense this season. If you remember, in the Thursday night game, remember when Cincinnati played Pittsburgh, 33-31 was the final score? All four of Pittsburgh tight ends scored a touchdown in that game. All four of them. Freiermouth, Jonnu Smith, Darnell Washington, Connor Hayward, I think, was the fourth guy. So play your tight ends against Cincinnati. Who's got the best odds this week? Jonnu Smith. He opened at plus 230. He's up to plus 250 right now. The Bengals, they've been a disaster defensively. They've given up 36.7 points per game over their last 7 contests. That's not a typo. Tight ends are averaging over 80 receiving yards and 1.3 touchdowns per game against this unit. Last week, in the game against the Chargers, Jonnu Smith did lead all Steeler tight ends in routes run and route share. So among the 3 Pittsburgh tight ends, the big 3, he's kind of priced in the middle for an anytime touchdown, but he's the best bet to score. And obviously what we talked about should be a high-scoring game. So second player, Jonnu Smith, Pittsburgh Steeler, tight end. And the third player I want to throw in is going to be going in this Arizona Cardinals San Francisco game that we talked about, or touchdown in the earlier portion of the show. Last week we rode Trey McBride, and I've got no problem if you play Trey McBride again to score this week. The guy's been a monster when Jacoby Brissett is the quarterback. What we loved about him last week was he was a 2-1 underdog. Now he's pretty much a favorite at plus 105 to score this week. I don't like the value there with McBride. He might definitely score, that's for sure. But the tight end whose value I love to score in this game is George Kittle, particularly now that Brock Purdy is back in this game. Again, I wanted to back Trey McBride, but I just can't justify his short price. So we're going to take George Kittle, who's currently, he opened at plus 180. He's still at plus 160. Those are decent underdog odds. And remember, Brandon Ayuk is still out for the 49ers. Ricky Pearsall will not be playing this week. So George Kittle is a guy that's going to really need to step up for the Niners in a must-win divisional matchup. He's the third guy we're going to add to our parlay. So there you have it. Right now, at the current odds, this one pays 23-1, and it's Tyler Algier to score for the Atlanta Falcons, Jonnu Smith for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and George Kittle for the San Francisco 49ers. 3-team must-score parlay. We'll see if 23 is our lucky number, Jim, as we ride it again for the second week in a row.
I think it is. It's guaranteed to win, right? I'm kidding, folks. Nothing is guaranteed, but
nothing is right.
Sounds good. It sounds good.
Right, you're absolutely right. Nothing is guaranteed. We got about 3-4 more props that are worthy of individual wagers, and then we're going to play a prop ladder before we say goodbye for the day, Jim. But number one is the fact that Minnesota-Chicago game, indoor game, high point total, expected to be pretty high scoring, and the timing is right, finally, if you ask me, for Justin Jefferson of the Vikings to step up. He opened at 69.5 receiving yards. He's up to 73.5. So it looks like some of the sharp early money is in agreement with us. I think it's worthy of a stand-alone play. Yes, he's off back-to-back disappointing games. 84 total receiving yards in the last 2 games for Jefferson. He has not recorded 80 yards in a game since week 5 against Cleveland. However, he's still been a target monster. He's coming off a game last week in which he was actually targeted 12 times against Baltimore. That was a season high. So it's stepping up this week in terms of what he did last week with the amount of times he was targeted last week, that Justin Jefferson of the Vikings should go over his receiving yard prop, currently at plus 73.5. Another guy who's due, who just played on Monday night, is Josh Jacobs of the Green Bay Packers. And when you are playing the New York Giants, folks, you want to start your best running back when it comes to props. And that's Josh Jacobs, 78 and a half rushing yards, still at 78 and a half rushing yards. Yeah, I know this Packer offense has struggled big time. They seem lost with Tucker Kraft out of the lineup now. They are so injured at the wide receiver position. Matthew Golden, that first round stud, missed last week's game with a shoulder injury as well. Again, this is that perfect for the Packers. We call it a get right game considering the opponent, the New York Giants. You know they're going to want to reestablish the run, something that they want to do, that LaFleur wants to do, is be that run first team. While the Giants' defensive line is one of the best in the NFL when rushing the passer, the defense has struggled to defend the run on the season. They rank 30th in the league in run defense grade. Play your Josh Jacobs over props and definitely go over 78 and a half rushing yards with Green Bay on the ground, going to want to ground and pound against the New York Giants this week. The third parlay that I do want to throw in, Jim, is one of our little ladder type parlays, and it's the fact we're going to be going back to our Cincinnati Pittsburgh game, and we're going to be talking about our boy Joe Flacco again. You know, we know what he did against the Pittsburgh Steelers in that Thursday night game, so we're going to be playing our Flacco over props, and we're going to be playing those alternate lines as well. That's what we do when we play a ladder in terms of props, is that we play him over his normal total, which is about 300. Let me see here, 325 yards. So we can go as high as 350 and get some good underdog money in terms of Joe Flacco. So go to your Pittsburgh Cincinnati page, wherever it is on whatever sports book you're using. And that's the very first bet I made for the week in terms of props, was I played him over his very highest total that I could find, which was plus 350, over 350 passing yards at just about 4-1 odds. And then work your way down. Flacco again should have a fantastic game against Pittsburgh. Consider going over in all of his passing props, even the big ones. We're going up the ladder with Joe Flacco as our final NFL player prop of the week. So we got a couple of good ones. Jacobs, rushing yards. Jefferson. You know what? Another one to consider is if you're looking for a solid Sunday morning prop in the game against down there in Spain with our Dolphins taking on the Washington Commanders, consider your Jalen Waddle over the total receiving props. Open at 72. He's up to 76 and a half. Washington has allowed wide receivers over 75 yards, the number one receiver on the opposing team now in 5 out of the last 6 weeks. Waddle is establishing a pretty good rapport with Tua right now. So I would also include that as an interesting parlay, or not parlay, but prop you may want to consider if you want a little bit of Sunday morning action with the Dolphins taking on the Commanders. Consider your Waddle over receiving props in that game as well.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And people don't realize how, they put a line up and you say, oh, I'm going to bet the over the 72 because whatever, that's hypothetically. And they don't think, well, what do you really think they're going to do? I mean, how about over 92? They might be getting 3 or 4-1. I
Right.
mean, just think about it. I mean, that's really, now we do realize that with this gambling issue and everything, and we may not have props for very long, like Victor brought up, and that might be a good thing. That probably will be a good thing, at least for the integrity of the business. But while they're here, let's try to take advantage of them. And anything else, Victor?
Yeah, we got a big one. 4-star over of the week in the NFL. Last week it was the winner in the Tampa Bay game. Now, we got lucky in that one, folks. I'm not going to argue. We got 14 points in the last 2 minutes of the game.
I was right there with you
for that over to hit, and I'm sure, and I'm glad you were with me in that one, Jim, because with about 4 minutes to go in that game, we thought we were sunk.
Yeah,
and the next thing you know, a quick touchdown and then a Tampa Bay touchdown with 38 seconds left. That game goes over the total. But hey, a win's a win, whether it comes with the help of Lady Luck or whether it doesn't. A win is a win. We'll take that. We got a 4-star over of the week in the NFL. It's a game we have not mentioned on the show today. It's available right now on our playbooksports.com website. We've gone 67% now on the season in our 4- and 5-star best bets in pro football. You don't want to miss it. You want to check that one out. That's our big one this week in the NFL. If you're in the college football totals, we got 3 of them going on Saturday night. All 3 are overs. All 3 are in the big conferences. That's also available on the website as well. So we got a big weekend. We got some good props. We got a good TD parlay. We got our doggies working overtime this weekend with Baby Brutus off his winner last week. Tuco's team total on the Bengals over 22.5. So, yeah, we got some good action this week, Jim, and we're looking forward to another profitable weekend.
Well, thank you, Victor. I agree. This is going to be a good week. I mean, we're down to week 11 here, and people are talking about playoffs and their meaningfulness of these games and stuff, and they are meaningful. The preseason is over, and the second preseason is over, and the third preseason is over, and now we're into the meat of the season. We're talking about, this is where you have a chance to make it into the playoffs, and that's where the money is, and that's where these guys want to be. Thank you, Victor. This is great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Jim. Love you, buddy. Talk to you next week.
Thank you, Bill. And good luck, everybody. Let me end this.